I wonder if the finals event currently has the draft pods being shared with the regular traditional event that we're in currently. I could see that being the case since I think that's how they did it for the other events. But I don't know. As for this pack, what do we have that's interesting? There's Clarion Spirit for mono white, although it's not even the highest value card in mono white, I don't think. Experimental Frenzy isn't terrible. There's like nothing in this pack that actually strikes me as individually powerful. Kind of nothing at all. Experimental Frenzy is probably the most individually powerful card in this pack. I don't know if that's where I would want to go with a mono red deck, but it's that or Cold Steel Heart, I guess. I could take Cold Steel Heart and try to draft some sort of control deck. I guess Cold Steel Heart is staying very open. That's probably your very respectable, correct first pick. And immediately in the next pack, I kind of want to take this Languish. Board wipes are, it feels like, the most important element to drafting control decks in this cube. Languish is probably one of the two best board wipes. Works with a Cold Steel Heart pick. Alternatives would be Trumpeting Herd is pretty strong and plays nicely off Cold Steel Heart, or I could take a Mind Stone and just stay on the open pseudo rampy strategy. Try to play a big mid-range deck. I think I prioritize board wipes over Mind Stone though. I think board wipes are the least replaceable part of this whole cube process thus far. So I could take Midnight Clock as a control card and try to prioritize lots of removal. I could take Starnheim Unleashed, which doesn't synergize great with Languish, but is a decent control finisher and a solid follow-up to Languish. I could take Haunted Ridge if I wanted to end up in some sort of possible black-red mid-range list, which isn't out of the question, although I don't know how much black top end there is. I think I want to lean towards taking the Midnight Clock here. I don't know that I super value the ramp aspect, but I do think that I value the card draw aspect in control. Here we have a choice between the Watery Grave, the Shark Typhoon, and the Guardian Idol. We've seen a lot of the 2-mana ramp already. Guardian Idol isn't my favorite, but it is good. And if we're in blue-black card draw, ramp isn't terrible, but I think I'm probably supposed to take the Watery Grave if I want to try to make blue and black work. I think at this point I'm supposed to prioritize getting a better mana base over cards that are decent. Shark Typhoon kind of loses a lot of its value when you're not playing control mirrors built around punishing your opponent for sideboarding out removal, and that's just not how Cube works compared to Constructed. So I don't think that its niche is as potent here. And this pack, we definitely have a lot of nice options. Pelucranos is pretty good with everything we've got going so far, but so are Multiple Choice and Thirst for Discovery, and those don't require us to go into a third color yet. Search for Escant is also interesting, but I think it's a little slow. It does find Languish, I suppose. I think with Midnight Clock and Cold Steel Heart, I want to take Multiple Choice, though, in that it's essentially a 5-drop, but it is a pretty good 5-drop. And we sort of care about having enough mid-range top end to make our ramp and board wipe strategy work. It is kind of sad that it makes a token that doesn't synergize great with Languish, though. Alright, what do we have here? We have a whole bunch of creatures we don't want. God Eternal Bond 2 is not for this deck. Blood for Bones is not for this deck. Nimble Obstructionist, I highly doubt is for this deck. I don't believe Blood Artist is something we want. So I think we take Blooming Marsh just as a speculation pick to stay open to more colors, but not terribly happy with it. Okay, here are some options. Sign in Blood for card draw, and it's pretty efficient card draw at that. Or Chainer's Edict as a removal spell. How highly should I prioritize early removal? You cost how much to flashback? 7? None of the lands are that exciting. I think in blue-black, I expect that I have access to card draw, and I take the cheap, efficient removal over that. Here, I don't think we're going to end up in a deck that wants Wilderness Reclamation. There's just not really enough instants to take advantage of that on average. Vraska's not bad if we wind up splashing, but if we wind up splashing, I would rather have more fixing. So Drowned Catacombs definitely winds up being the pick, I think. Out of our very bad opening pack, nothing good wheeled, which isn't surprising because there wasn't anything good in the pack to begin with. Of these, Augur Bolus is really the only card I'm interested in. Trumpeting Herd still being in this pack is kind of surprising. I think this card must be very underrated. Or there may have been other good green cards in the pack. But Trumpeting Herds is one of the cards I'm more happy to ramp into on turn 3, which is a lot of what green wants to do. We'll take a Tusk Legion Zealot, though. It is a card we could play as a 2-drop. That's about as much as I could say for it. I'm not interested in Stitcher Supplier. I'm not really interested in Unstable Obelisk either, but we will pick it and possibly play it. Wow. A lot of powerful green cards. Kind of feel like green must have been fairly open. Take a Nightpack Ambusher over Gemrazor, I think. Unlikely we'll ever actually have the double green to play it. Pelucranos, on the other hand, is a card I actually could see us splashing for. We do have Cold Steel Heart. Between Outland Liberator and Blood Artist... I'm sorry, where did you go? Okay, here we are. I think that there's more of a possibility that we end up with a deck that wants to board into Blood Artist than a deck that wants to board into a Naturalize. That said, hello options. We have Disdainful Stroke, which I do actually really like in best of 3. We have a Scarab God for another mid-rangey win condition, which does work with our 2 little ramp options. I'm not really into Thassa. I don't think our deck is going to be super capable of casting Phyrexian Obliterator. There's Patient Rebuilding, which might be a more interesting win condition than Scarab God, but I think I'm supposed to operate under the assumption that Scarab God being able to block makes it the pick here for me. In this pack, Lightning Bolt is really appealing, but we're never going to be able to splash that meaningfully. Rankle, still don't think this is actually a good card. Yawgmoth, mostly valuable if you have other creatures, of which I don't have terribly many. So none of the cards seem stellar. I'm happy to, I think, just pick the fixing. Hard Evidence is probably a pretty good anti-aggro card that I should be taking. I don't think Ebon Death is super necessary. Morbid Opportunist is also kind of interesting, but I can't help but feel like Hard Evidence is definitely a card that I'm actually pretty happy to be playing in a blue-black deck that just wants to stall the board if possible, and then play ramp spells on the next couple of turns. Double Hunt Master is also interesting, but I'm not really confident in getting the fixing to make that super playable. All of the Storm Giants, I don't know how much of an upgrade to a deck like this that actually is. I guess we can get to the point where we have 7 mana and it represents being a blocker, could occasionally be relevant. Great Merchant of Asphodel I don't see doing too much because I don't foresee myself having a ton of devotion. Demonic Pact, I very much doubt we end up with enough answers to. So, over a bunch of medium picks, I think upgrading an island into a Hall of the Storm Giants is probably good for the deck overall. I don't know if Foul Play is stellar, but it is an anti-aggro card that provides us with card draw, so I guess it beats out literally every other card in the pack being mostly unplayable, except that I could take Godless Shrine so that I could splash white board wipes. How does the power level of Foul Play compare to that? I think I'm going to take Foul Play, but there's a very strong possibility that Godless Shrine is just a better pick there. Somehow, black and blue are both looking extremely closed, which is a problem. What does this card even do? Is Deck of Many Things terrible? Playable? Unplayable? I'm not going to have time to read what that does in time to make this pick, am I? Alright, I'll take Bastion of Remembrance and hope we don't have to play it. Ruined Crab, in a similar vein to Hard Evidence, is technically a win condition. I don't think we're excited about that. It was very playable in AFR, and Cube I would think deck might be a little too slow. Yeah. Probably. I confess I didn't actually finish reading it in time. I think Alrund draws cards if it's in play. I've never seen it in play, so I'm guessing, but I think that's what it does. Choose a card type, then reveal the top 2. Yes, okay. So it sort of draws cards. I think we just take Baleful Mastery. That's acceptable removal. I said that I thought that blue-black might be kind of closed, but I guess Thassa isn't like a control-y card advantage-y blue card, so it wheeling isn't necessarily telling. Although we've seen a lot of blue-black or blue-white flash cards. I think I'm probably supposed to play Null Priest of Oblivion if I'm playing anything from that pack. I really don't want to play any of these cards. I guess I'll take Rankle and hope I don't have to play it. I don't really want to play well, I guess maybe I want to play Scavenging Ooze if I end up playing Polychronos. Although, probably not. It's just not exciting to play on curve, right? Or, well, if we're splashing green, it's not exciting if we don't play it on curve. And it's hard to play it on curve off of a splash. Or activate it multiple times, even. What does Valentin do? Menace, lifelink, a non-token creature. Okay, wait, Valentin's actually pretty good. Turns all of our removal spells into the option to make pest tokens, which is life gain. I like that. Llanowar Elf is a decent card, but I doubt we're going to have the fixing for it. Yeah, green-black's definitely totally open. Okay, options, 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 options. I don't think I can pick lands aggressively enough to make Field of the Dead work. I mean, maybe I could. But I feel like that's probably not as worth attempting to do as just taking Memory Lapse. And then odds are that I will either wheel a Botanical Sanctum, a Field of the Dead, or a Cruel Reality, all of which are, to me, acceptable cards. And Memory Lapse is just making the deck as one of the most powerful cards pretty much 100% of the time. Here's interesting choices. Immortal Sun is a pretty solid control win con that invalidates opponents' planeswalkers randomly. Solemn Simulacrum is also good. We don't have a huge amount of ramp payoff yet, but the color fixing is nice. I think I'm probably supposed to take the Solemn Simulacrum. The blue-white blink deck is definitely extremely real. I have seen some very disgusting builds of it. I think I'm trying to convince myself that I should take Seagate Restoration over Poison the Cup. It is helpful to have if we end up wheeling that Field to the Dead, although I'm not sure that's super likely. And I'm not like 1,000,000,000% into Poison the Cup anyway. I don't think Seagate Restoration is actually good, but one way or another I'm going to try to play Field of the Dead. I'm going to hope. We could take an Ulamog. That's an option. Is it a good option? I do not know. I could play Inscription of Insight as a card draw spell, or I could play Inscription of Ruin. I probably don't hate having more removal, and I probably don't hate having more on-curve spells. Of the cards in this pack, Disfigure is probably the only one I want. Cultivator's Caravan does fix for green, but I just don't see that being horribly meaningful right now. I could also just take Bright Climb Pathway to make Field of the Dead stronger, which is a horribly speculative pick. I should just take the Disfigure. I'm going to be happy to have access to Disfigure in the sideboard, even if I never main deck it. And I probably will main deck it, even. I could play Karuga. It is a bummer that it dies to Languish. I really don't want to play Disallow. No, we'll play Karuga. I don't like counter spells in this format generally. Alright, interesting choices here. Stonecoil Serpent and Mechagodzilla are both good. Lake Claim is also good. And we have a fair amount of ramp that makes Lake Claim pretty interesting. I think I want more top end. And for that purpose, I like Lake Claim. Oh wow, I'm super happy to play Phyrexian Arena. Alright. We did not wield the Field of the Dead. That's a problem. Are we at the point where we wind up cutting the Pelucranos and the green mana, and therefore don't play Botanical Sanctum? Probably. And we get to play Cruel Reality. Is that good? I don't know. But I do want to do that. So this is the WinCon we're on now. Bit of a bummer that I've got stuck with this Seagate Restoration I don't actively want. And we'll just hate draft some lands. I guess I could play Brineborn Cutthroat, possibly out of the sideboard at some point. So, did we end up with a playable deck? Hard to say. We got 5 lands. So I need 1 more cut? I'm imagining that cut is probably Ebon Death. I'm not terribly excited about this card. Wait, 14, 13. Oh, I needed 2 more cuts? I did my math wrong. Oh no. Alright. How many hits for Augur do we have? Hard Evidence, Disfigure, Multiple Choice, Chainer's Edict, Foul Play. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Wait, did I count memory lapse? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 hits for Augur. Looks at the top 3. 25%. No, Augur's gonna whiff. No Augurs. Because Augur's always gonna whiff. Even if you're playing 50% of your deck as instants and sorceries, Augur's gonna whiff. Seagate Restoration counts as a... Yeah, okay. The fact that it was putting those in a different order confused me because it was too far over on the side of the screen. The front side of the card, which is what it is in any zone other than the battlefield, is a... or rather, any zone other than the battlefield or the ability to play the card, the pseudo stack, into sorcery. So Augur of Bolas would view it as a sorcery. You have a 59% chance to get a hit off Augur. Yeah, that sounds about right. We have 3 looks at more or less a 25% chance. Not quite, because... Anyway, 59%, yeah. That sounds like those super geometries I've heard about. Oh yeah, for the purposes of land spell balance, Seagate Restoration absolutely counts as a land. I'm very rarely ever expecting to cast it as a 7-drop. In fact, I'm so unlikely to cast it as a 7-drop that now that I've cut the Augur of Bolas, I think I'm probably going to cut the Seagate Restoration for an island, and assume that that just improves my matchups against every aggressive deck, and then I can consider boarding it in against a controlling deck. Or, well, a mid-range deck, that is to say. Now, Dusk Legion Zealot and Null Priest of Oblivion versus Brineborn Cutthroat. Instant speed spells include Disfigure, Memory Lapse, Baleful Mastery. Yeah, I don't really want to play Brineborn Cutthroat on my main deck if I'm playing 3 instants. That doesn't seem good. Shadow Spear. How many creatures? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? 9 things. Oh, plus all of the Storm Giants, technically. 10 things that sort of resemble creatures. That also sounds like a no on Shadow Spear. I think that means this is where we go. Somehow still not actually convinced we wound up with a fantastic lineup against aggro. Maybe that's wrong. I mean, Null Priest of Oblivion, Hard Evidence, Disfigure, Sword of Valentin, Inscription of Ruin, Languish. These aren't bad cards against aggro. We'll probably be okay. I think we ship it.